Hi everyone, this is Jim with JP Reacts, where you come to hear a former candidate discuss what politicians mean by what they're saying and sometimes what they don't mean, what they mean by what they don't say. Today is part 2 of a special video covering H.R. 1, which is the Voter and Election Reform Act. I think it's called For the People. I will definitely link to it below. We covered a big chunk of registration and voting and all that in the last video. So we're going to continue basically where we left off. So if you're into that, stay tuned after this. Okay, welcome back. So we're moving on to the next part of this, which is election integrity section. So we'll start diving right into it. Hopefully you're getting a lot out of these videos. This is actually, for me, a pretty exciting bill. I really, so far, am very excited that we're going to fix up a lot of our election issues that have not just been happening in 2020 or 2018, but for many, many years. So I'm glad we're starting to work on this. The next part is finding and reaffirming commitment of Congress to restore the Voting Rights Act. Declares that Congress finds that the Shelby County decision ushered in a new area of voter suppression, and that Congress should build a record of voter suppression since Shelby. Declares that per the Supreme Court's ruling in Shelby, Congress should restore the protections of the Voting Rights Act by updating the formula for determining which jurisdictions are subject to federal preclearance. That's a little bit of a complicated one. The Voting Rights Act was passed in the 60s. In the last, I can't remember when, the Supreme Court ruled that parts of it was unconstitutional because it hadn't been updated in a long time. And since then, a lot of those states that used to have to pre-clear any changes to their election laws to avoid racial discrimination or sexual discrimination have implemented new laws to make voting harder. So this says that they're going to instruct Congress to collect all that data and then come up with a new formula to help to write a new law to reinstate the pre-clearance for those states that need it, that meet those new requirements. Findings, Native American voting rights. Declares Congress intent to protect and promote and exercise the Constitution guaranteed right. Basically, it says that they're going to make sure that Native Americans are able to vote. Findings related to district. Declares the Congress that the District of Columbia residents deserve full congressional voting rights. So basically, it's recommending that statehood for D.C. Territorial voting rights. Declares Congress view that right to vote is one of the most powerful instruments that residents of the territories of the United States have to ensure their voices are heard and establish a congressional task force. So there's some territories that aren't allowed to vote. They're just ruled by the United States. So they're going to look into what's the best way to make them. Personally, I would say organize them all into one big state. A lot of these are in the Pacific and maybe even in the Caribbean. Maybe you organize those into one or two big states. Or maybe Puerto Rico becomes a state and it grabs some of the other, anything in the Caribbean to go along with it and create one bigger state for that, so that way they have full representation. I think everybody should have full representation in Congress, and I think that's probably the only way to make it fair, is to create a couple new states, one for the Pacific Islands and one for Puerto Rico and the Caribbean Islands. I would just group those together. And then, but I'm open to ideas, obviously. And then give them full congressional and Senate representation. And we'd probably have to increase the size of the House by, if we're including D.C., probably by 10 to 20 new House members, just to make sure that there's enough representation in Congress. Redistricting reform requires states adopt independent redistricting commissions for purpose of drawing congressional districts. So every 10 years, after the census, the amount of representatives is distributed based on the population. And then that means there's redistricting in every state every 10 years usually. Right now, the politicians can pick their own voters. This would make it an independent commission to make it fair for everybody, so that it also would help states have less partisan elections, because it wouldn't be just whoever wins the primary is most likely to win. So like in Illinois right now, there's big chunks of the state where It's a Democratic primary that's to determine of who's going to be the congressional representative, not necessarily the November election that decides that, just because it's so heavily Democratic. And you might not be able to eliminate all of that, but you can get it a little bit better, which is, I think, is what the goal is here. Saving eligible voters from voter purging, we talked about that in the last part. Basically, failure to vote is not a reason to be removed. You have to prove that the person no longer is eligible in that jurisdiction. No effect on greater opportunities. Clarifies that the provision in this title is a floor, not a ceiling. So basically, this is the minimum. States can make it even easier for people to vote if they want to, or be registered. So this is the minimum, so states can do more if they want. Basically ends practice of prison gerrymandering, which is where you can draw your own districts. Basically, right now, prison populations are counted in the district where the prison is. This would change that and would be the prisoners would be counted towards where their primary residence is outside of the prison, even previous to them being arrested. And then again, this says that if one part's unconstitutional, each part is separate. They have to put that in each one. Next is election security. This is giving them financial support, so giving money to pay for this. Basically giving them standards for the vendors that are running the election machines, make sure that they know who's owning it, make sure that they're hardened against cyber attacks, all that good stuff. Have the EAC that we talked about, the Election Assistance Commission, EAC, that we talked about in the last video, have best practices for how ballots are designed to make it easier and simpler for people to be able to understand their ballots. Directs the EAC to make grants to replace voting machines. So in the last part, it was going to require paper ballots, so this would give them money to replace any machines that don't have paper ballots. Requires qualified infrastructure upon learning of a potential cybersecurity. So if somebody knows that they got potentially cyber attacked, they will have to assess how much damage was done. So it requires those vendors to do that. Requires the EAC to submit a report to the appropriate congressional committees on the activities. That makes sense. Yes, hey, where you're spending the money. And then this one says that gives $1 billion for 2021, $175 million for 2022, 2024, 2026, and 2028. So it's how much money they're going to get, basically. Requires states to undertake measures to prevent and deter cybersecurity incidents involving computerized voter registration databases. So making sure that the state, because everybody's registered in their state, it's not done at the federal level. So this would make sure that the states are staying on top of cybersecurity of their voter databases so they don't get compromised. Establishes competitive grant program for eligible entities for research and development that can improve the security of election infrastructure. So again, give money for research into making them even stronger and less likely to be breached by a cyber attack. Some more on security measures. Requires Homeland Security to maintain a designation of election infrastructure as critical. So making sure that Homeland Security, one of its major priorities is maintaining the integrity of elections. That's a critical function of their job. Homeland Security provide timely threat information to chief state election officials. So if Homeland Security knows there's a threat against a certain election group, it's their job to inform them right away. Directs the Director of National Intelligence to support a report to Congress and each state election official at least 180 days before general federal election detailing threats. So basically makes them tell them 180 days, so 6 months prior to an election, if there are any threats on the election. Next part is enhancing protections for the United States democratic institutions. Requires the president to produce a national strategy for protecting U.S. democratic institutions. So it requires the president to have a strategy on how to protect Congress, how to protect the vote, how to protect elections in general. Creates a national commission to protect the United States and counter threats, same thing. And then after this is passed, it requires the president to present this plan in 90 days, basically. Promoting cybersecurity through improvements in the election administration requires testing of voting systems 9 months prior to the date of a regularly scheduled general election to make sure that everything is up to date and everything is secure. Preventing election hacking establishes the Election Security Bug Bounty Program to encourage independent assessments of election systems by technical experts. This is basically giving money to what they call white hat hackers, which are the people that we pay to try to hack our systems to find security flaws so that the people that are trying to actually hurt us can't get in that way. We can fix them because our hackers found them first, basically. And then it creates an advisory committee for how to spend the money. Requires that states only get American-made voting machines. And then again, I'm not going to rehash the I can't even say it. Severs clause is what you want. So all right, we're campaign finance. This is a pretty wide-ranging bill. It's 26 pages, and we're 12 pages in. So this may be more than 2 videos, it's looking like. All right, so basically this establishes the duty to report foreign election interference. This expresses Congress's intent to curb the use of shell companies and other illicit activities to allow foreign money to enter and undermine our democracy. Basically, foreign entities can't donate money to into elections. So what this is going to do is there's some workarounds that some foreign entities have been doing. This is going to prevent that and prevent foreign money from being impacting our elections. Amends the Federal Election Campaign Act to create a reporting requirement of disclosing reportable foreign contacts, and then creates an obligation for each political committee to notify the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Federal Election Commission of the contact and provide a summary of circumstances no later than 1 week after said contact. So basically, this is saying if there's a foreign contact that they're aware of, they need to report it within no later than 1 week after that has been discovered. Establishes the Federal Campaign Foreign Contact Reporting Compliance System, whereby each political committee must establish a policy requiring all officials, employees, and agents to notify the treasurer or any other official of the committee of any reportable foreign contact no later than 3 days following the contact. So if they had contact with a foreign official or foreign person that was trying to influence the election, they're required to report it within 3 days. Establishes a rule of construction such that nothing in the title or amendments made by the title shall be construed. Okay, so basically, impede legitimate journalistic activities or impose any additional limitation on the right to express political views or engage in public discourse for any individual who resides in the United States, is not a citizen or national, and is not lawfully admitted for permanent residence. So basically, this is not to limit free speech or campaign speech. This is basically to make sure that foreign entities are not trying to spend money to influence our election. Next up is the Disclose Act. Strengthens foreign money ban by prohibiting foreign nationals from participating in decision-making about contributions or expenditures by corporations and other entities. So basically, making it harder for foreign nationals to contribute through multinational corporations. Prohibits the establishment of corporations to conceal election contributions and donations by foreign nationals. That's basically very similar to what we just said. Requires super PACs and other organizations spending money in elections and on judicial nominations to disclose donors who contribute more than $10,000. Shuts down the use of transfers between organizations to cloak the identity of source contributor. So basically, anybody, super PACs, you can pretty much donate as much money as you want to these super PACs. And right now, there's no disclosure of where the money comes from. This is going to require anybody who gives $10,000 or more that the super PAC needs to disclose that information. So that's a big deal. Requires covered organization to file a disclosure report within 24 hours of making $10,000 or more campaign-related disbursements. Covered organizations are the super PACs. Basically, if they spend more than $10,000 on a campaign-related expense, they need to disclose that within 24 hours. Provides that donor information also needs to be reported if such disclosure would does not need to be reported if such disclosure was subject to donor to serious threats, harassments, or reprisals. So basically, if disclosing the donor would put them in danger, they don't have to report it, but they're going to have to prove it, that would actually put somebody in danger. Provides that Super PAC is a corporation other than the charity part of it. So that basically just says what kind of organization they're on. The stats requires large digital platforms to maintain a public database of political ad purchase requests of more than $500. Directs digital platforms to implement measures to prevent foreign nationals from directly and indirectly purchasing political ads. So this is like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They need to maintain a database to make sure that the people buying ads are not foreign, and also that anybody that spends more than $500, that they know who it is and can be reported out. Directs digital platforms to implement measures to prevent foreign nationals from directly or indirectly purchasing political ads. So, putting in security measures to prevent foreign nationals from being able to spend money on political ads. Adds paid internet or paid digital communication to the definition of public communication. So basically, what that means is you can pay for ads on just Google searches and stuff like that. So that's what they're talking about there. That is also included in public communication. And then adds qualified internet or digital communication to electioneering. Electioneering is talking about election or campaigning, and so that's what they're talking about there. Requires online platforms to maintain and make public in machine-readable format a complete record of any request to purchase qualified political advertisements made by a person who aggregate requests on an online platform during the calendar year exceeds $500. So basically, this is saying that these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, like we said, has to maintain a list that can be that's available on demand in a format that is readable by computers for anybody that in total in a year spends $500 or more. And then requires broadcasters, providers of cable or satellite television, and online platforms to make reasonable efforts to ensure political advertising is not purchased by foreign nationals directly or indirectly. So that's, again, talking what we were talking about before. So I'm going to cut off this video here. It's starting to get long again, and we're only halfway through this. So hopefully you gathered, I was able to add some more information. This is a lot of good stuff in this part of it, especially about making, my favorite part was making Super PACs disclose anybody that donates more than $10,000, because that will really help understand where the money's coming from. So hopefully you got that. So if you found some value, please like this video. In the comments below, please tell me what your favorite part was. Did you like the Super PAC disclosure, or did you like a different part of this section? Also, tell me if you like this version, if it's without having a video, if that's okay with you. But until I see you around the internet, you guys have a great day. Bye.